The Far East Command was a British military command which had two distinct periods. These were firstly, the 18th of November 1940 to 7 January 1942, succeeded by the American, British, Dutch, Australian Command, and secondly, 1963 to 1971, succeeded by Australia, New Zealand, and United Kingdom Force 1940 to 1942. The British had two commands with responsibilities for possessions in the Far East. GHQ India under General Sir Archibald Wavell, the Commander-in-Chief, India, and the Far East Command under Air Marshal Robert Brooke Poffman from the 23rd of December 1941 by Lieutenant General Sir Henry Royds Pownall. The C-in-C Far East Command was responsible directly to the Chiefs of Staff for the operational control and general direction of training of all British land and air forces in Malaya, Burma, and Hong Kong, and for the coordination of plans for the defense of those territories. But the CINC exercised no commander control over any naval forces. It was intended that CINC should deal primarily with matters of major military policy and strategy, but it was not the intention that the CINC should assume any administrative or financial responsibilities or take over any of the day-to-day functions at the time exercised by the general officers commanding of the different areas. The degree of operational control of British land and air forces, which the Commander-in-Chief Far East should assume, was defined as meaning the higher direction and control, as distinct from detailed operational control. To complicate matters, the GOCs correspond with the War Office, Air Ministry, Colonial Office and local governors' offices on all matters on which they had previously dealt with those departments. But the GOCs had to keep the CINC informed if he wished to enable the Commander-in-Chief Far East to carry out his functions. He was allowed a small staff, initially consisting of 7 officers drawn from all 3 services with the necessarily clerical and cipher staff. For intelligence purposes, he had at his disposal the Far East Combined Bureau, though it remained under Admiralty control. Although the establishment of his staff was later increased to 15, it was never large enough. The naval base was a considerable distance across Singapore from the Malaya Army headquarters, which discouraged frequent meetings. On the 5th of December 1941, London gave permission for CINC Far East Command to decide if Operation Matador should be activated. The chief strategic decision to be decided was whether Siam should be invaded in a preemptive move before any Japanese landings took place. The Malaya Command was responsible for the planning of Operation Matador. When the Allied governments appointed General Sir Archibald Wavell as Supreme Commander of American, British, Dutch, Australian Command, British Far East Command became redundant because its functions would in future be carried out by BDACOM. So when Wavell arrived in Singapore, where the British Far East Command was based, on the 7th of January 1942, ABDACOM absorbed the British command in its entirety, and CINC Far East Command Henry Royds Pownall became Wavell's Chief of Staff. On the 15th of January, Wavell moved his headquarters to Lembang near Bandung on Java and assumed control of Allied operations. Commanders-in-Chief Commanders-in-Chief have included, after the Far East came under the jurisdiction from August 1943 of Southeast Asia Command. The initial land forces operational area for SEAC had been India, Burma, Ceylon, British Malaya, Sumatra, and, for offensive operations, Siam and French Indochina. On the 15th of August 1945, this was expanded to include the Dutch East Indies and French Indochina. SEAC was disbanded in 1946, and in 1947 the Army Command was reformed under the name Far East Land Forces. General officers commanding included 1947 1948 General Sir Neil Ritchie, 1948 to 1951 General Sir John Harding, 1951 to 1953 General Sir Charles Keatley, 1953 to 1956 General Sir Charles Lowen, 1956 to 1958 General Sir Francis Festing, 1958 to 1961 General Sir Richard Hull, 1961 to 1963 Lieutenant General Sir Nigel Powett, 1963 to 1971. 1963 Far East Command was established, covering the region covered China, Hong Kong, Kobe and Singapore. Major bases included Hong Kong and Singapore. It was organized as an inter-service command, Far East Land Forces, Australian Army Force, additional air and naval elements. The 11th of January 1971 disbanded at Singapore. Commanders-in-Chief have included British Commander-in-Chief, Far East Command, the 24th of April 1963 Admiral Sir Varial Begg, 1965 Air Vice Marshal Sir John Grandy, the 1st of February 1967 General Sir Michael Carver, the 7th of March 1969 Admiral Sir Peter Hill Norton, 1970 Air Chief Marshal Sir Brian Burnett, Commander, British Far East Land Forces, the 10th of April 1963 Lieutenant General Sir Reginald Hewitson, the 8th of June 1964 Lieutenant General Sir Alan Jolly, the 28th of July 1966 Lieutenant General Sir Michael Carver, the 31st of January 1967 Lieutenant General Sir Thomas Pearson, the 16th of November 1968 Lieutenant General Sir Peter Hunt, the 10th of October 1970 until the 30th of October 1971 Major General Sandy Thomas.